Who's ready, Bills Mafia? It's the Bills Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Buffalo Bills, every week. Breaking down the big hits and game-changing plays the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So gear up and squad up. The Bills Squad show starts now.
And welcome back to me, I guess. I missed a day. We're back on the Bill Squad show. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Big O, Jerry Ostrowski here on the Locked On Bills channel. Happy to have you along with us here on YouTube. If you're watching live, you can like and subscribe. Join us. We've got a lot to get to today. I've missed a couple news items, gentlemen. I'm excited to dig into with you. James Cook hitting the NFL's top 100. Bill Barnwell ranks the Bills' pass catchers and weapons. We're going to dig into that. I saw Joe had some incredible stats on the Bills' defense as we talk about whether or not they can keep that up going into another season where they try to be near the top of the league in takeaways. And beyond that, some other NFL news and notes, a lot of uniform stuff this time of year. I'm very impatient waiting for the Bills on this. Like, come on. The Saints got a helmet. The Commanders are going back to their glory uniforms. Like, we got a lot to get to. So without further ado, we'll do that here on the Bill Squad show. Gentlemen, good afternoon. It is good to be back. Technically, I'm on vacation, but I'm here for you. I couldn't miss another one.
Well, we're thankful to have you, Jeremy. I mean, making time for us. We're trying to listen to you on WGR. Got to talk to just Joe this morning. No Jeremy, but you found an hour here on this Thursday afternoon for us, man. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a big family vacation. So I found an hour away from all of the kids. Like, this was very much needed right now.
Okay. I let you say that, not me. You know,
I was just going to make that point. Your sacrifice is being able to stay away from everybody that you've been locked in a house with for 7 days. So I get it.
That's right. That's right. And, we're also counting down till training camp. This vacation for me from WGR is really, it is kind of gearing up. It's a lot of media does this. Players do this, right? Get your vacation in, because once we hit July 23rd, it is full bore for the season. And we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of Bills training camp. It is list season, right? Like, we're going through a lot of these lists and rankings and all this. And the title of today's show, and the thing to start with, is Underwhelming or Underrated. Saw Bill Barnwell of ESPN. He has running backs, receivers, tight ends ranked. Every team's position group and just the skill positions, not quarterback, not offensive line, and not really play caller either. It's just like, how are your Jimmys and Joes in that position, which is something, of course, we have talked about at great length. And I saw a lot of reaction to it because he had the Bills ranked 28th at that spot. Those three spots, I should say, running back, receiver, and tight end. So, but let's get to it. Like, what do we make of 28th? Worth mentioning his formula. He said he's ranking receivers with a little bit more weight than tight end and running back. And the Bills sit at 28th, which is a drop from 20th to 24th to 28th. So by his account, not only are they near the bottom, but they've been getting weaker at these positions. And I don't think the three of us would agree with every piece of that.
Yeah, I disagree a lot with this. And I've done this myself. Myself and Kyle Krabs on the Locked On NFL Scouting. We've literally taken the last 9 weeks and we've graded every player in the NFL, and we can go through and we can tell you, hey, this is our quarterback rankings, our skill players, our offensive line, whatever position group. We've done it. We've done this work, and we put every team through the same lens. We have the Bills at 15. Like, our consensus is 15, which is middle of the pack, which I think is extremely fair. You talk about 28th, you're getting down to teams like the Browns, the Jets, the Panthers. Come on, the Patriots. I don't understand that ranking at all. I think there's a lot that this skill group needs to prove with especially Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. But I think this is not being mindful enough of the depth that the Bills have with their weapons. No, there's no Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley or those types of players are not here. But there is a lot of depth to it. And furthermore, I think what's really important about the skill players isn't necessarily how they rank 1 to 32. It's how do they build an offense that allows you to move the ball and score points. And the Bills can do that. They've proven that. They scored, second in the league in scoring last year. And I think that they're better this year with the arrival of Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer, plus, a lot of players that are in another year with Josh and Joe Brady and all those types of dynamics. So at the end of the day, it's probably inconsequential, but I do think I struggle to find the legitimacy between a bottom 5 ranking relative to the rest of the league.
I agree with that, but I think this is something that's pretty telling. You're going to tell me that the elimination of Mac Hollins has dropped this skill group from 24 to 28. That, by the way, is crazy in itself. That a guy that was thought to be a placeholder has that much influence on an offense that when he leaves, you drop 4 ranking spots. Second thing is, I think a little bit of this is kind of how the narrative's been flipped on Josh Allen, to where we've gone from overrated to now it's he's so good he can take the 28th ranked skill group and be the best offense in team history. So it's so funny how this script flips. But no, honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with the tight end spot. Maybe Dalton Kincaid not having the year that everybody thought he would. That probably dropped the group a little bit more. I don't know how you can bring in Joshua Palmer and not think that's an upgrade, or Elijah Moore and not think that's an upgrade. Obviously gives Shakir some love, as most people do. But I think the other telling thing is, just how much, again, ranked 89th in the NFL top 100, in the top 10 of running back rankings as far as executives go, and now a huge influential piece in this Barnwell deal, James Cook. You look at all this stuff, and, if you're at the court of law, James Cook now all of a sudden has a lot of evidence to, say, hey, maybe I do deserve that money that you say I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Like reading through his methodology, it's not only that it's tilted toward receiver, it's also that it's about elite players in your top 5. And it's almost like it's designed for the Bills to finish at the bottom, which is, of course, not like what Bill Barnwell's trying to do. But the way the Bills are built, rankings and formulas and all this, if you were to say, let's have a running back, receiver, tight end super draft in the NFL, and every position player like that was on the open market, the highest bill that gets drafted is who? And where does he go? Because I don't think there's any dispute that player probably wouldn't go very high. But that kind of gets to Barnwell's point. It's almost like Barnwell's piece about the rankings was about the Bills would come in kind of low at their top guy, and then they'd fill in reasonably well underneath.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
I don't take much exception with that.
No.
Who do you think would get drafted first? It'd be Cook or Shakir, right?
You would think so, unless there's a believer that Kincaid has just not been really given the opportunity to show what he can do. Like, if you're an offensive coordinator in the NFL, this might be a fun question for everybody and for people that want to comment and give your thoughts here. Who would an NFL offensive coordinator, if they're starting to build an offense, who would they take first? Is it Shakir or is it Kincaid? I mean, you could throw Coleman at it if you want. Anybody you want. Cook if you want. First pick is, you think it's Shakir?
As I'm processing this right now, I do think it is Khalil Shakir. That yards after catch ability that he has is really special. And one of the things I think he didn't get as much of an opportunity to do last year that we saw more of in 23 was more of a down the field presence, some vertical stuff that I think is part of the menu for him, that last year the Bills just didn't have the structure in place to really allow him to get more down the field. And so there's an overall profile here of route running, yards after catch. And then there's when you watch him play, there's a competitive toughness with him, just pinballing off of dudes and competing for every inch that I'm sure any coach would love. I think he's discount Amon-Ra St. Brown. And for that reason, I feel like he's probably the one that gets picked first, but I'm not super firm on that.
I'm not firm at all. And honestly, if I'm going to pick somebody first out of this list, it's probably James Cook. If I'm going to eliminate one of the 2 players from my offense off of last season, I know Shakir was big in third down and all that, but James Cook was the motor that made this thing go. The way we want to run the football, we want to control the line of scrimmage. I know we've got capable guys behind him, but he's got special ability behind this offensive line. He's gotten very, very comfortable in this system. To not have him in this offense would be incredibly disruptive. To me anyway, I take James Cook, especially considering, the potential to bring him out of the backfield, catching the ball and all those things. But, I guess it's a close race, but I lean to James Cook.
You know what's fascinating about this conversation is I picked the 5th round receiver. Jerry picked the end of the 2nd round running back, and Dalton Kincaid's the 1st round tight end, right? It was a top 25 pick that the Bills traded up for. Like, that should be the one that's picked first. I think we just need to learn a little bit more about what he's going to be this year.
And let me ask you this about Kincaid. Jerry, go ahead. Finish that point real quick.
No, go ahead, because I have something that's tied into this, but this takes precedence.
I just want to get to Kincaid there, because the thing about Kincaid for me, I don't think there's any doubt about the ability. Were Bills fans, I guess there's 2 different ways to look at it. Is it they haven't seen all of what he can do, or he hasn't been used enough, or maybe it's a little bit of no tight end when they come out, when they're compared to Kelsey, is ever going to look good enough, right? Like, hey, this guy's the next Travis Kelsey. For me, the criticism or whatever, the thing I was always a little bit hesitant on Kincaid was simply, I don't think this player is as unique as maybe he might have been sold to be. A lot of teams have or started to add tight ends like this. So it wasn't that I didn't think he was going to be good. It's just matchup nightmare, that kind of preparation going into year one. I just don't think that has really come to full fruition just yet. And maybe that's coming because tight ends, their age range and like the career arc sometimes takes a little bit longer. So when it comes to Kincaid in this conversation, like which piece of it is missing? Is it just the usage? Is it, the rest of it?
It's consistency with his chemistry with Josh Allen, which you guys have heard me talk about a million times, because the route running profile is off the charts. The yards after catch profile is off the charts for 2 years in the NFL, like literally top 10, top 5 in some of those metrics across 2 seasons. Where the issues have been is what happens when he's targeted, and there hasn't been a good enough story to tell. And partly because they're just not on the same page with as much consistency as they need to. And I think we've made some mistakes with our expectations. When you started talking about Kincaid and then the invoking Kelsey, like that was definitely a thing. And, you draft Ed Oliver and this is the next Aaron Donald. You draft Greg Rousseau and this is the next Calais Campbell. It's like, maybe we should stop doing that, because those, in the cases, like sometimes they're only 75% of those players, and that's pretty good, but they're not Chris Jones or Calais Campbell or Travis Kelsey. So we got to be a little more careful when we do that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Adding on to the Kincaid issue is, a player can only do what he's asked to do. And is this offense and Joe Brady innovative enough to utilize Dalton Kincaid's strengths in the passing game? And to be honest with you, I think anyway, and Joe, you might agree or disagree, whatever, but to really utilize these kind of hybrid tight ends, you got to kind of sell out to the hybrid tight end theory, right? I mean, I know that you can get them here and there, but I would think, you've got to really, really stress them. And have they really done that?
He's the highest targeted tight end in the NFL last year per route run. They want to throw him the ball. The results at last year were not what they needed to be. I mean, 37% catchable ball rate on targets 10 yards or more down the field. Like, that's going to lead to a lot of empty production that you want to be there. So, and the Bills are 28th in percentage of plays that are passes. I talked with Joe DiBiase this morning on WGR, and he's asking, when you look at the amount of routes run for Kincaid compared to the other top tight ends, it's a lot lower. It's like, well, yeah, the Bills are not a high volume passing team like those other teams are. So when you look at the volume numbers, are not there, but on a per route, I mean, nobody gets more opportunities than Kincaid.
Real quick, let me ask you this question, because this came up in the Discord last night, Joe, after you had left. When you look at this Bills group and you look at the Barnwell ranking, 28th in the league, and then you kind of look at the receivers, and it's, they're guys you notice, but it is kind of more of a no-name group. I mean, Coleman, second-round guy, but you've got a few here and there. When you guys are building a wide receiver group, okay, do you want the one crazy all-pro stud receiver and other guys with them? Do you want a couple and some guys, or do you want this sort of blueprint? I personally like the two guys. Maybe there's one guy that's not you got to throw 50% of the passes to him, kind of like the Eagles, A.J. Brown and Smith, right? And then you got a bunch of other dudes that are just kind of there. How would you set this room up if you could do it the way you wanted to do it?
Well, I think the important layer to the conversation is that Josh Allen's your quarterback. For certain quarterbacks, I would say, yeah, I want the 150 target guy. I want the 100 target guy. And then, we can go from there. With Josh Allen and him being more of a visual player, that can play off script and extend plays and, is really creative, I'm more open to this type of scenario. Now, I want my guy that can get buckets. I want to say, hey, it's 3rd and 4. We know that this guy can uncover and separate. Like, I want that. So I think my answer changes per quarterback, but
right.
You asked me this one, so I'm assuming it's Josh Allen, and I'm more open to this. It doesn't hurt. Like, it wouldn't hurt to have a tier 1 A+ guy. That's not going to hurt it. But if there is a quarterback that you can not have that, I think it's this one.
That was my answer as well.
Let me ask you this. You guys are talking about, as we get to all this on Kincaid, and Joe, you say the chemistry. So what can they do to improve it other than just give it more time? Is it about being in the film room more? Is it about throwing throw more balls? Like, if they want to get better chemistry, how do they do it?
Well, I think it's all of that, right? And we saw Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs very quickly take off, and you heard them talk about, we played a lot of video games and spent a lot of time together, and hopefully that's happening with Dalton Kincaid and Josh Allen, because I think there's been varying levels of this with Josh, where with John Brown, with Stephon Diggs, with Cole Beasley, things took off really well. But then I think with Kincaid, with Coleman, even Emmanuel Sanders, I think it took a few weeks for that to come together the way that it should. And I think one of the complicating factors last year, specifically with Kincaid, is you had an entire new receiver core. There was almost like too much chemistry that needed to be established with too many players that it kind of took away from that year 1 to year 2 growth, specifically with Kincaid. So hopefully with only like 2 new pieces to the puzzle here, you can be a little bit more deliberate with your time with guys that are returning.
I think that's the biggest misconception. Guys in college, you live together. You're there all the time together. You're hanging out together. The pro game's different. You go to the office, you're done the day, you go home. And it's harder to build that kind of rapport like you do in college. And Joe makes a great point with just hanging out, man. I mean, there's stuff we used to do all the time as an offensive line. We play paintball. We do all kinds of crazy stuff. But it was that time together and building those relationships. And that is just as important as how many balls you catch in practice or the jugs machine or watching film together. It's just getting to know somebody, and you get comfortability with them spending that time. And I think that's highly important as far as players in the league go, as far as building that rapport together.
It's the Bill Squad show here live on YouTube. You can like and subscribe. Please do that. When we return, I saw 2, we're talking receivers and tight ends and running backs. I saw 2 posted videos of Bills receivers and the work they're putting in. I want to get your guys' thoughts on those if we can. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you haven't. And if you haven't, you can go give a look for them. So we'll get to that on the other side here on the Bill Squad show. Hey, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. It's as simple as that. Go to FanDuel.com. You're already following the action. At FanDuel.com, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. So if you're using FanDuel to track your favorite matchups, whether it is the big soccer Cup, whether it is golf, I love to get on the golf. It's a 4-day event every time. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So same game parlay, ride something into the 9th inning, place a live bet. FanDuel makes it feel like you are part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, Jerry Ostrowski here on the Bills Squad show. Happy to have you along with us here. We talked about the ESPN rating of the Bills skill group, 28th. And we kind of broke down how it's almost designed to make the Bills a little low there. I saw 2 videos in the last I'm on vacation, but I saw 2 videos in the last week or so. I saw Keon Coleman and Elijah Moore, both chopping the feet, running routes. And it's that time of year where you get these posts, putting in the work. See anything you like there? Coleman trying to work hard. I mean, Coleman we saw a little bit at OTAs. I feel like the Moore clip may have caught more eyes. He's a guy that comes in as not UDFA, but a post-draft signing. And I feel like Bills fans are starting to really get excited about him. And what he posted, it was getting a lot of reaction. So if you guys have seen it, you give a thought on these 2 posting their workouts.
Yeah, I saw it. It's amazing how these videos, I mean, they get they're about as sexy as watching a Dua Lipa video, man. I mean, everybody gets going crazy over these things. Yeah, I saw them. I mean, Heck, even Thurman Thomas commented on Elijah Moore's video saying that he's going to be a problem. So, no, it's awesome. I mean, that stuff's fun to see the guys training. You got all the social media and the fact you can see behind the scenes and you get a little look at what they're doing. But, yeah, interesting stuff. Those drills are cool. They're really cool. Now, stick a big old 6'2", 215-pound corner in front of them while they're running the drill, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, sorry,
Joe.
I had you muted. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
All right, all good. Understood, Jeremy. You wanted to phase me out. First of all, if you had Jerry Ostrowski with a Dua Lipa reference on today's episode, please collect your earnings on that. Yeah, Elijah Moore looked good. I mean, but I'm not surprised that the 5'9", 178-pound receiver looked a lot better than the 6'3", 215-pound one, right? I mean,
right.
They're just different players. And I think the video of Keon was a good reminder that, he's just not smooth and sudden. That's just not what he is. He's a physical player that's going to play through contact, that has good vertical straight line speed or vertical explosiveness to an extent. Just different players, right? And I think that's okay. Like we have got to stop expecting Keon Coleman to run routes like he's Elijah Moore or Antonio Brown or whatever great route runner that you want to invoke. There's ways that he can be a productive NFL player. But yeah, it's not going to be the hard horizontal snaps and turns and pivots. That's just not going to be his game. So he'll have to do it in a different way. But I was much more impressed with Elijah Moore than Keon.
I was more fired up when Keon scored 60 and I was watching him dunk the basketball.
Boy, that was good.
To me, that was much more impressive.
It's different athleticism, right?
That's who I want to play on Sunday. That not running around cones, the guy dunking the ball. That's the guy I want.
Nuts, man.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Well, is it important, as you mentioned, the ways these guys are going to win and how Coleman's might be different? Is it important for him to work that stuff anyway? The Bills, I'm thinking of a player that if he's going to win for you in certain ways, you want to make sure he gets better and is the best he can be at those certain ways, and you're not going to use him incorrectly. And this has been something that, some critics of the Bills that put them 28th in running back, receiver, tight end, they might wonder about their plan for Coleman. And we've talked before, they're like, the best version of Keon Coleman might be in a different offense, but he's in this offense to bring out the best version of this offense. And those are not always exactly the same thing, those two things.
Well, I think the more he can add to his repertoire, the better. But, I think that's a challenge that the Bills have with any player that they bring in is how do you optimize their skill set to affect your offensive output? And, it's not going to hurt if Keon becomes better at, dig routes and I prefer him on runway routes, but yeah, he's going to have to be able to snap one off and make a hard break from time to time. And, hopefully he can get some more off coverage that would allow that. And he doesn't have to deal with, as much right in his face at the line of scrimmage. But I think the more he can develop a complete profile, the more he's going to be able to do the things that he's best at. And so I think it is part of his own growth is like, hey, you're not necessarily going to be at a B+ or an A level at this, but if you can get it to a C, it's going to take the stuff that you are B+ or A level at and make it easier for you to be productive in that way.
That's what I've said for quite some time. I want to see him embrace, and I think we're going to see that with his change in body and all that, and the fact that he's back in the weight room and he's not worrying about trying to run 40s and everything else. I want him to embrace what he is, a big physical receiver that can throw people around. Do that well, and like Joe said, the rest of the stuff will fall into place because you can't, it makes it easier to do the other stuff when a guy's worried about what he does well, which is go be a bully, man. That's okay. You can be a bully receiver. I don't care about separation as long as he's catching the football and making plays. And we get so hung up on certain things. And I know that some of these stats are indicators. I get that. These things are indicators. But there's a lot of guys in the league that are outliers. Okay? It's just like Joe was talking about earlier. Dion Dawkins at OL Mastermind trying to convince us all that he's a finesse tackle. Okay, well, I can pull up clips real quick to show you he's not a finesse tackle. But I get what he's saying. I mean, these guys are outliers. And we got to quit trying to put them in a box. Let them do what they do. And I hope that's what Keon does this season.
Looking at the group, again, we've talked a little bit about Kincaid. We've talked about the receivers. The running backs, let's get there on this idea about the Bills' skill positions. James Cook got a nice little nod, the NFL's top 100. He made it for the first time at number 89. I had to laugh because I saw he's right there by Kyron Williams, who, Joe, it's a comp that you've made quite a bit, a couple guys that are kind of waiting for their new deals. So Cook, and then the other two, Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, like these guys are guys that I don't know that every team has a Ty Johnson. Like that guy can play and it makes a big difference for this team. So, the running back group in that piece for Barnwell, he faded running backs, and that's where the Bills probably come through higher than most teams.
Yeah, 3 guys that are legit parts of this offense, right? And so I would question the methodology if you're not going to factor in players that are important. I mean, obviously the most important one is James Cook, but let's not act like Ray Davis doesn't have a role. Let's not act like Ty Johnson isn't on the field in 2-minute and end-to-half sequences and high leverage passing downs. Like, if that's not part of your equation, you're missing some stuff. You're missing some stuff that matters.
No, what was that?
Cook.
No, I just heard a deal. No, talking about James Cook. Let me. How big Thurman Thomas was?
Oh gosh, what 5'11", 210, 205, something like that.
5'10", 200 pounds. How big is James Cook?
5'11", 190.
Okay, relatively the same size, right?
Yeah.
So I ask you this question, and I'm sorry if I'm going off on a tangent because I was looking that up and I didn't quite hear everything you said. If James Cook can pass block, is he worth the money? Are we talking to having these conversations? If James Cook can pass pro, if James Cook plays more third down, if James Cook can pass pro, because we always say that can a back his size handle the extra plays and all that stuff? He's the same size as Thurman. Thurman had no issue with it. Played a long time. Are we having this conversation?
I need to know what that looks like. I need to know what does another 20 to 30% of snaps look like on James Cook? I mean, yeah, if there's some comparables to size, but I mean, dude, those running backs, whatever was going on in the 90s and these guys didn't get hurt, I don't know what the answer to that is, but they just didn't, right? Different people, I guess. Emmitt Smith, not a big back, but never. I mean, I would say this about Thurman Thomas, not a guy that took a lot of big shots. He knew when to go down, right?
No,
he wasn't lowering the shoulder there on the sideline. He's getting out of bounds. Right. So I don't know what another 50 to 75 touches looks like for James Cook. And if he can be an impact player late in the season, I could tell you that when he had more touches in 2023, he faded down the stretch where he had less touches in 2024. And I thought he was unbelievable in the postseason. So I mean, I hear you, but I need to see some proof of concept for James Cook. And I think the other part of that conversation is, do you want that? Do you want one back that you're that reliant on? Then you're kind of burdened to like involve them to a certain level, and maybe that takes away from utilizing the fullness of your offense. So I think there's some layers to that. I think in theory it sounds good, but I think there's some unknowns that I need to explore.
Well, it's hard for me sometimes to wrap my head around this, considering that we talk about the 90s being a more physical era of football than it is now. They're taking all this stuff out of the game. There's more passing and all this. 90s are supposedly more physical era of football, but yet we had no problem with the backs doing what they did then. But now all of a sudden, I don't know. I'm going down a rabbit hole.
I mean, Thurman Thomas is over 300 touches like 6 years in a row.
Yeah.
James Cook hadn't done it one time, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I get it.
I guess the Bills, part of this conversation is, would the Bills ever be talked into a bell cow, right? Because they haven't really had one, or they've consistently drafted the next guy and split the role for Singletary and not Cook, help me, Zach Moss. Singletary and Moss, and then it's Moss out and Singletary and Cook, and then it's Cook and Ty Johnson. Like, they've never really been talked into that type of player. And it might be the same conversation that we have about receiver, which is, hey, if we had it, we would, but we're not going to act like we can't survive if we don't have that.
Right.
Well, I always try to go back to as much history as I can. And I don't know how much you can put on Brandon Beane for the decisions in Carolina, but he was part of a front office that drafted D'Angelo Williams in the first round, paid D'Angelo Williams, then drafted Jonathan Stewart in the first round and also paid Jonathan Stewart simultaneously, then also brought in Mike Tolbert and paid him while he's paying the other two guys. I don't know how to apply that to the Bills. Maybe that's more of a who was that GM that they had that nobody like Gettleman. Maybe that was more of a Dave Gettleman thing.
Yeah.
But Sean McDermott has said with his mouth, it's not good for one back to carry the load. I don't think that they want like that one guy to have that much on their plate. And I don't think we've ever seen the Bills under McDermott go 3 deep with meaningful backs. It's always been, 1.5. And then TJ Yeldon was inactive for, forever. Whoever that third guy is doesn't even
Matt Breida.
matter.
There's a Matt Breida
Sure. Yeah.
era.
They have 3 legit backs that are important for what this offense does.
Yeah. And thinking about Cook here, one thing I just like to, here it is. It's, July 10th. We're 2 weeks before camp. How nice is it that we're not worried about him not showing up, right? Like that's mostly been put to bed and he'll be there. He'll participate. I guess you could wonder if there's going to be any sort of limitations or load management or whatever. But the belief is he'll be there. He's going to ball out. He's going to try and get paid. And it'll be interesting to track during the season because we won't just be watching this offense as an everybody eats offense. We will, but it'll be every time Cook breaks one, I feel like we'll look at that a little closer. Would the other guys have broke that? Is he the difference in this offense that keeps them where they are? Because, there's an old story. What if you change all the parts on a car, every single part, do you have the same car when you're done? Mixing a metaphor here. Maybe you've never heard that before. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is you can say you have a great offense and change out a piece and put another one in, change out a piece and put another one in. Eventually you feel like it would be different and you would suffer somewhere. Allen is your insurance against that. And I just think that Cook this year, watching him, we will be focused play to play. Fumbles, if that comes back for him, which it never really has been an issue, all of a sudden that's why I don't assign a guy that fumbles the football. So we're going to watch Cook differently this year than we have in most years.
Let me ask this. Let's say that we do watch James Cook this year and it becomes pretty clear that the Bills are using him more. Let's say that he's playing 65, 70% of snaps and getting more touches per game. And he winds up being 325 touches this coming season. Are we going to convince ourselves that is the Bills running him into the ground and letting him go? Or are we going to convince ourselves that, well, they wanted to see if he can do more and now they're going to pay him? Like I'm very curious to see how those narratives play themselves out.
No, I had that same feeling. Talked about it last night. Every time, do they go ahead and we, like we talked about, put him in the passing game more, get him more involved in the offense on third down? Are you now risking the fact that every time he does something big, the calculator, cha-ching, every time you check that box, storability, check that box. And now all of a sudden you've just painted yourself into a corner because you got to pay him, right? He just proved that he can do it. So, I don't know. I think you're right. I mean, there's going to be question marks all the way along the season with him and everything else. So, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Jerry, can you recall, like, from your time as a player, was there an offensive player that was like with a extension in limbo? I know you were around Eric Moulds and Peerless Price, a ton of different backs. Was there ever one that was like you could compare to this where you kind of go through the season and you're wondering what it means for the outlook? Or I know it's a big thing to put you on the spot for. But
yeah, I believe there was an Andre Reed. There was an Andre Reed situation where he was kind of waiting on a contract and all that, and later on, and how does that all play out? And of course, the biggest problem with contracts in these situations is then as a bystander being in the same locker room, you get drawn into it. So what do you think about him not being here? What do you think about him? Should he get paid? And hey, man, like I said, I'm for everybody to get paid whatever they can get paid, man. Get the most money you can get. But yeah, I mean, it is different. It is weird. I mean, and usually in the middle of the season or during the season, you don't think about it as much. But as soon as the season's over, there's those transitional pieces that you're like, man, are they going to really be back here? And like I've said before, you don't make friends with anybody till at least week 3, 4, 5 of the season because you make friends after the first, after the final cuts, and they could be gone 2 days later. So you just kind of bide your time and wait around and see what happens.
Before we close this discussion, I want to bring up 2 back-to-back comments. First from Beth. I think they'll give Cook more snaps to prove his worth. He wants 15. He needs to be a 3-down back. And then another, if he goes for 300 touches, he's gone because there's no home team discount. And that kind of gets to it where the threat of a holdout might
Right.
not be happening. But we mentioned James Cook, and we've got, well, they'll either run him into the ground or they'll be trying to prove he can do it. And then there's the question, if you're Cook, if you want to prove it, will they even let you prove it? Because, you know, so it'll be something to watch throughout the whole season. It'll be fun, and hopefully the Bills offense is cashing in with a lot of touchdowns. When we get back, we're going to switch gears to defense. Joe has some great numbers on the defense that answer a question or a bit of a concern. They've been very, very reliant on turnovers, especially last year. The defense had its problems, was relying on turnovers. How sticky can their turnover numbers be? Joe's got some numbers on that. We'll get to that here on the Bill Squad Show in a moment. All right, Mafia, it's the Bill Squad Show. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Jerry Ostrowski here. And spend a lot of time on the Bills offense. Other weapons underwhelming, underrated. We're going to shift gears here and get a little chatter for the defense, because one of the big questions about this unit coming into this year is, can they repeat their turnover numbers? They were very good in protecting the football on the offensive side. But in takeaways last year, that's how the defense survived. They survived with a number 1 rating in takeaways. And the question is, can they do it again? Because it's not exactly the kind of thing that is usually sticky in the NFL. But for Mr. Joe Marino, he's got some numbers on how it really might be sticky for the Bills.
So first, let me share why I decided to look into this. I was listening to Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. They were talking about every team's over-under win projection, and the whatever source they had it at 12.5. And they were debating whether or not the Bills would be more or less 12.5 wins. And two talking points stuck with me listening to them. The first one was actually a lot about what we talked about with the skill players. And Sam even said, Brandon Beane's calling into local radio stations and saying, well, I can't believe you're talking about a lack of weapons when defense has been the problem. And
I heard about that.
I don't know if you saw, maybe you came across that. But Sam said, look, Brandon Beane is correct in that last year it worked, but was that an outlier situation? Was it just a lightning in the bottle where, they were able to overcome it? But in reality, it's an issue that might be more manifested this year. He wanted to at least give that some thought. But the other thing that they got into was talking about the Bills' winning formula and how much taking the football away on defense mattered for their equation. And that's absolutely true. And they started to say, well, one of the least reliable year-over-year metrics are takeaways, and they're fluky, and it's hard to rely on them for multiple years. And I started to think to myself, well, I think the Bills are always good at taking away the football. And so I did the work, I did the research, and the Bills have been phenomenal. The last 5 years of percentage of drives against the Bills defense that resulted in a takeaway, last year, 17.5%, they're first. 16% in 2023, they're first. They're fifth in 2022. They're seventh in 2021. They're second in 2020. So they're in the top 25% of the league each of the last 5 years, and in the top two of the last, 3 of the last 5. It's a pretty sustainable metric. And then you go even bigger picture, and you look into just volume of takeaways. So not on a percentage of snaps situation. If you look at just volume of takeaways year over year, the last 12 Sean McDermott defenses have been top 10 in total takeaways every single year. That is multiple different teams, right? I mean, different franchises, different defensive nucleuses. It's not just, well, you have Josh Allen. No, you have Tyrod Taylor. You have bad Josh Allen. You have Cam Newton. You have other quarterbacks that played in Carolina. That's unbelievable, right? So, well, maybe for most teams, taking away the football is not sustainable, but Sean McDermott, 12 years in a row, is top 10. I mean, that's pretty that's not a coincidence, right? And Bobby Babich has been asked about this, and he always says, look, you get what you emphasize, right? You get what you emphasize. And I'm sure that's part of it, but I also think that there's some strategy behind it schematically with the Bills and how they lean into analytics, and they want to leverage the field in certain ways that make it harder for you to move the ball and therefore probably get more takeaways. Now, I've been able to live in this Twitter conversation all morning because people have seen that tweet, and they've gone a lot of different ways. And I've seen a lot of commentary about, let's talk about the playoffs. Okay, I hear you. We can talk about the playoffs and how Sean McDermott is 31st all time in NFL history for playoff wins and has, one less playoff win than the likes of let me see here. I got a good list here. Let me make sure I don't blow this. Sean McDermott has one less playoff win than Mike Tomlin, Sean McVay, and both Shanahans. He's got 2 less than Jimmy Johnson, Sean Payton, and Tony Dungy. And I get it, dude. If anyone's listened to me talk over the years, you know how annoyed I am with Sean McDermott's defenses in the playoffs. But maybe we need to give him a little bit more credit for not having his players. I mean, how many times have the Bills faced the Bengals without their defensive line or the Chiefs? And it's like, my gosh, there's no linebackers. They're without their best corner. Trey White misses in 2022. They hadn't had Benford the last 2 years. You know, there's Hyde's been out. Von Miller. It's like, I watched the 2015. I purposely did this. I went back and I watched that 2015 NFC Championship game. They picked off Carson Palmer 4 times. He looked like a clown. There's truth to all of it. But if there's anything that is true, it's Sean McDermott has proven his ability for 12 years in a row to be the, by far probably the best takeaway defensive play caller there is.
That's an amazing statistic. And I would love to get deeper into that analysis of that stat, where what is kind of the main underlying reason for that? Is it the use of analytics? Is it the intricacies of the 4-2-5, the extra DB on the field? Do you funnel, is it hard to figure out? Obviously over the last so many years, it hasn't been hellacious pass rush, right? So what is it about it that forces turnovers? And that's an amazing statistic. Anytime you can do that and you can limit the opposing team as far as possessions go and give your guy more, I mean, that's crazy.
One thing I wonder, Joe, I'm not sure if you have the numbers on this, but a question comes in from a commenter. The key is consistent forced fumbles. It shows tackling discipline. Interceptions are much more fickle. That can be true and false, because getting the ball on the ground is good. Recovering it, that's fickle. Sometimes you're just not going to get those bounces. But that is something last year especially, like, we've watched Sean McDermott and these Bills defenses for years. Last year's the year it felt like they were punching the ball and they were ball hawking for fumbles way more than years past.
Right. Yeah, I do have the parsed out by fumble recoveries and interceptions. Last year, yes, the Bills number 1 in fumble recoveries, but they're good at both. Fumble recoveries, just going backwards by year. 2024, 1, they're first, they're 5th, 10th, 6th, 4th, 14th, 7th, 19th, 9th, 2nd, 6th. So like a couple of years where they're not top 10, but in that same 12-year sample size, they were 10 out of 12 years top 10 in fumble recoveries, and they're always really good at intercepting the football. They were 11 out of those 12 years in the top 10, their lowest ranking being 14th, and I would say most of those years were like top 5. So they're good at both.
Yeah. And it's not just volume takeaways either, because some teams might be merchants of that, where you're getting in shootouts and there's a lot of possessions, so your numbers are higher, right? Like turnover percentage is something we can go for, and interception percentage is something you can go for, because one way the Bills might have done it in years past that they don't exactly do it this way is lean in on scoring early and forcing a team to be one-dimensional, right? McDermott's talking a lot about that. Like, I wonder how much of game script is part of this through the years for these McDermott Bills. Like, that's one way that Allen can kind of help McDermott, where I got that guy and Joe Brady and James Cook and this offensive line. If they're putting up points, all of a sudden I'm leaning on game script, and bang, like, you strike and you get the kill shot in the form of a takeaway.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation for the last 5 years, but we going back 12 here. We're talking about Tyrod Taylor Bills offense. We're talking about Josh Allen rookie season Bills offense, where it wasn't always very good. In fact, when you talk about total offense, obviously the recent Bills teams have been really good, but from in terms of how this overlaps with the takeaway numbers that I'm talking about, the last 12 years, especially in Carolina, you had offenses that ranked 24th, 30th, 29th, 19th, 26th. In fact, Sean McDermott never had a top 10 offense until 2020. So a lot of that is teams that were average to well below average offensively.
No, it's an amazing statistic, especially when you think about the fact that, our quarterback that we have was a bit of a turnover machine earlier in his career, and they were still ranking where they were ranking to offset that. And I think that's another thing that's amazing to think about. The art of getting the football out as far as that goes, I mean, I'm sure they practice that all the time. And I think it's easier to me anyway to get the football out now as opposed to when it used to be back in the day when it was, a lot of the, you didn't have the penalties. So guys were leading with heads, kill shots, and all that stuff. Now it's this anaconda type, tackling where the first two guys get there and they wrap up because you can't put your face in anymore. And then the third guy can come in and punch the ball out. So I think a lot of some of this getting the ball on the ground recently is because of the new style of tackling, to where you're not just banging dudes on the ground, trying to crush them. You're having to wrap up, that they call it hawk tackling, which was the Seahawks. And you see them out there with the big donuts, and they'll roll the donuts and they hook the donut with the arm, and then, gator roll, which is supposedly outlawed now, but I haven't seen much of that. But yeah, I think that's why you can get the ball out so much now, because the guys are getting held up and the third guy can come in, second guy come in and get the ball on the ground.
Fumbles are down. That's a good call out, right? So 2010 forward, you're looking at about one fumble per game.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, it was 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
70s and 80s, it was pushing 2 per game, and before the 60s and earlier,
right,
it was 2.5. So yeah, I never thought about that, but fumbles per game have drastically come down. Yeah.
Yep. Quick follow up on this. So the peanut punch, right? Peanut Tillman. He's watching these games. Does he just like smile every time he gets a shout out for the peanut punch? Charles Tillman, who according to Wikipedia is currently an FBI agent. So
yeah, that is true. That is true.
Peanut Tillman's an FBI agent.
I saw it. Yes, I saw it the other day. That is 100% true.
I'm not sure if that's more surprising or Randy Johnson like getting into photography. You know about this, Randy Johnson, the pitcher?
Yeah.
He's a photographer. And his logo, surely you know about this. He threw a pitch and it collided with a dove. Yeah. That's the logo. It's a dead dove.
It's not a dove, but I think it's a seagull.
A bird.
Whatever it was.
Bird.
He comes in credentialed up and has the orange vest on.
Could you imagine?
Oh yeah, Randy Johnson. He's getting great photos because he's about 3 foot taller than everybody else.
Yeah, it's like so he's got
he's got a unique perspective where he is up there.
Wow,
no doubt.
Yeah. All right, when we get back, we'll get some comments in. Joe says he has a very fun question to ask us.
Oh God.
We're 13 days from camp, so we've got a little bit of breathing room.
I'm stepping out. I got previewed the question. This is a doozy.
You did?
This is a doozy.
Okay, I've got one for you that maybe will be a little tamer. I don't know what Joe's going to bring our way, but either way, we'll be ready for it. Back in a moment here on the Bill Squad Show. All right, Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Big O, Jerry Ostrowski here on the Bill Squad Show. You guys are trading highlights of the masterminds. What is it? It's a symposium, like a meetup of offensive line.
Yes.
It's offensive line
masterminds
or whatever. Say, yeah, masterminds, like Comic Con. This is where the linemen all get together. We've seen clips from Dawkins and Joe Thomas and all this. So cool time of year, and I've really enjoyed hearing you guys talk about all the line stuff. But maybe some less important stuff. Joe promised us a question. He's got a question. Jerry's covering his ears. All right. How bad can it be?
Listen,
no, it's not bad. It's just
I'm excited to get your answer on this. I put Jerry on the spot last night in my Discord channel. We do a Wednesday night hangout, and Jerry stopped in last night, and I was like, all right, let me pitch this to you. Because I stumbled upon this the other day. I was thumbing through some reels, so I can't take credit for coming up with this question. But here's the question. This is for Jeremy. If all animals were exactly 100 pounds, so, rhinos are coming down to 100 pounds, whatever, chihuahuas are now 100 pounds, which animal would be the baddest animal?
So they're all going to be the same size, roughly.
We're 100 pounds.
They're all 100 pounds.
We're unifying size.
Yes. Weight. We're unifying weight.
Sure. Like, but rhinos are coming down to the same size as a dog.
Yeah.
And squirrels are up to the size of a 100-pound dog. Every animal is exactly that big.
Yes.
Who's the most dangerous?
Who don't you want to mess with?
All right. Well, boy, that's a good question. It's only animals. We're not doing insects, right? I can't get
no tarantula.
I got a tarantula hawk. You get a 100-pound tarantula hawk, you might as well just fold up shop.
And that's
why in the military.
Well, the person I asked this to first, like eventually was like, is the answer really an ant? Because an ant can lift like however many 1,000 pounds is its body weight. Like if you have 100-pound ant, can they now lift up the entire city? So I don't know if we want to go with are bugs animals, Jerry? I feel like you're qualified to answer that based on what you shared with us before. Let us know.
I'm not. No bugs.
You're not sure.
I'll answer. Right. I'll answer with a wolverine.
Mm.
Wolverines are pretty feisty.
See, Jeremy, we think similarly. That's what I said. Wolverine or 1B was what, Joe?
Well, let me chime in here because now that's 4 people in a row that I've asked this to, and I've heard either a wolverine or a badger. I guess those are probably similar type animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everyone, you're like, wow, 100-pound, those things are crazy, right? They're like 25 pounds. They can kill cows, right? If I'm not mistaken. But then you start to think to yourself, what about a bald eagle? What if a bald eagle was 100 pounds? Those things are like 15 pounds, man. That's going to be a problem for you.
Yeah. It's a
those
big
talons.
That's right. It's a big bird.
Here's the problem. If all animals were 100 pounds, there'd be some humans leaving the face of the earth.
We'd be in trouble.
We'd be in big time trouble. Big time trouble.
We might also have some more things to throw on the grill. I mean, I'll just say that. Like, if they're all sized up well enough. Anyway.
So
the question
if I can, I get I take some crap for this. I'm not looking for more meats, right? I want pork, beef, poultry. I don't really particularly care for fish. I'm not eating alligators or snakes or anything like that. Jerry, you strike me as somebody who might throw a little something different on the grill from time to time. But like, I'm not sure that I'd be really interested in sampling some of these other animals if they were 100 pounds. Are you? Jeremy? What's your what?
I'm simply saying, like, if there's a 100-pound ant, we might find out if they're delicious or not.
If I could get if rabbits were 100 pounds, I would be farming rabbits for meat. I would have a rabbit ranch.
Could you imagine how high that thing could jump if it's 100 pounds with that type of leg power?
I don't care how high it can jump. You know how big and tasty that thing would be?
I've never eaten rabbit.
Oh my!
See, I knew it. I knew you were eating rabbits. I knew this was you.
So here's my question: did this come up? How did it come up again? You just
asked
friends.
I was thumbing through some reels the other day.
Okay.
In my idle time.
Now, I wonder if this came up. Did you see the NFL one that went around social media the other day?
Let's do it.
An entire team of one player. 11 Lamar Jacksons against 11 Lamar Jacksons, offense, defense. Like, right? God. What would be what was the question exactly? It was that 22 players are the exact same build. What would be the best team? Is that it?
Yeah, I actually have it saved right here.
Okay.
Assuming every player is at their athletic peak, which NFL player would win a game of 11 versus 11 football if all teams were made up of 22 clones of the same guy?
Okay, right. So the Bills send out their 11 Josh Allens play against 11 Ed Olivers, offense and defense. What happens there? How's that work? So what player, the athletic peaks, would be the best player in the NFL to have a team of 11 on a side of?
That's Josh. And I'm just saying that because I'm wearing his jersey. I mean, if you're playing 11 positions, Josh is what? 6'4",
250.
Okay, but hold on.
So now my offensive line averages 6'4", 250 across the board. I can.
You still got to block regular players, though.
Yeah. What happens when
I thought you were playing.
You're playing a regular team, right?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was you were playing another clone team.
You are. Okay, so what happens when the Josh clone team plays the Dawkins clone team?
Oh, I mean, we'll run all over that dude, man.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the Dawkins team is going to establish the run. And
no, let him do that. I'm taking the Josh Allen team. Because Dion already told us earlier today in the video he's not a physical guy. He's a finesse tackle. So they're going to finesse stuff.
We're going to be getting text messages for 3 weeks from Jerry about Dion saying that he's not a physical tackle. This is great.
I'm going to do a whole entire series of shows on it. I'm just going to drop a video every day.
The appointment
not finesse. And when he takes like 3 dudes and totally collapses the end and Cook hops behind them, or snatch grabs and everything else. I'm going to just not finesse. That's all it's going to say. # not finesse.
Are we sure this isn't former Buffalo Bills great Myles Garrett? Come on, that guy's different.
He could do a lot. I'm trying to think of some of the defensive players that played. I mean, how about is Travis Hunter an answer for this? Obviously, I mean he has mastered 2 of the positions. to a degree.
Yeah, but they're playing every position.
Yeah, he's got to play O-line too, right?
Yeah.
He's got to play all.
But
That's
I'm
right.
trying to
He's not
find the biggest dude that's the most athletic that can be across the board.
Aaron Donald, he's retired.
Kyle
but-
Juszczyk. Can I get Kyle Juszczyk in this spot? Trying to think of some fullbacks, like who could be in some sort of hybrid. Reggie Gilliam, a team of Reggie Gilliams. The Swiss Army knife himself.
Yeah, I mean, sort of Swiss Army knife, but some dull blades. I mean, he's just a blocker, right?
All right, in Bills history. How about that? In Bills
Bruce.
history, Bruce?
And then Jerry Ostrowski, number 2.
No, not Jerry.
What would be your problem? Running routes? You got hands? You're a touchdown scorer. We know you can block. You can play every position up front.
I do have hands.
You throw?
I'd be a little suspect in coverage, I'm sure.
Jerry, wait, I got to know this. Did you ever have to be the guy that fields a punt at the end of practice? Have you ever done this?
No.
Oh,
I've done it, but I've never had the pressure upon me to either run or, the guy.
Would you catch it? What'd you think? Of course you're going to tell me you caught it, but what's the reality there?
It's hard. It's one of the hardest things in football to do, and I don't want to do it.
Right. Could you make an extra point? Could you make an extra point if you had to do it?
Kick one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably have to get the lace out and get the toe loaded up, go straight on with it like Jack Dempsey. That's why I crack up when everybody's like, "Oh, he's not worried. All he does is return kicks." Oh yeah, go. The same thing with long snappers. They're like, "Oh, he's just a long snapper, dude. I don't want a long snap." Nope.
You're alone in the arena there, right?
Yeah, it's the same with returning kicks, man. I won't do that stuff.
11 dudes that want you to be killed. The entire world is watching one guy. Yeah, it's tough. Punt returns is a real different animal there.
Yeah, punt returns awful. Absolutely.
I want to put some other NFL things on your radar, guys. So Tuesday next week, the 15th, I just remember this. The Chargers are introducing third uniforms. So a third set from the Chargers comes out on Tuesday. We've got the Commanders going back to their glory uniforms. They are beautiful. They're whatever. We're all suckers for nostalgia, but the ones that they're going to play, their third uniforms are amazing. The Saints have introduced a white helmet that looks really sharp.
Yeah,
it looks a lot like the Bills' white helmet, like just a really good white.
The gold
white
face
helmet.
mask is so good on that, and I love is it gold dust on the kind of a matte look? They crushed it. They crushed it.
So good. And I'm just over here saying, what? Come on, Bills. We know we're getting those rivalry uniforms. We know I want something. Let me give you money. I'll buy a jersey. I'll buy something.
They're going to break out the 2002 uniforms on us. Watch.
Oh, the World League uniforms.
Jerry, that'd be tough. I understand. I mean, you escaped those by 1 year, right?
Yeah, I retired that year. I took a team picture in one and I about vomited.
Oh no, you put one on. You put one.
Yeah, I actually had to put one on. No, if I was the Bills though, they'd hate me because I'd play in our all whites every game. I'd be like the Cowboys. I'd never take them suckers off. Those things are so gorgeous. Now they're a little bit suspect for a fat guy. All white on a fat guy is a little bit rough. You don't look very svelte, but those uniforms are so awesome. So awesome.
Before we go, go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead.
No, it was my stupid question. You had the question about animals. We had a debate here, on vacation, lake house with the family. Things come up in the family that are just kind of funny. What we do is each individual family makes dinner one night. So, one night you've got spaghetti, and last night was tacos. And I just simply asked the question because, you're here with a lot of people, all your family members. How many tacos is a lot of tacos to eat? How many tacos is a lot of tacos? Because, at the end of dinner, my wife asked me, how many tacos you eat? And I said, 5. How many tacos is a lot of tacos?
If they're a normal sized taco shell.
Normal sized taco.
I think 5 is what I'm going to sit down and eat. We start getting more than 5 though. We're getting
it's not a
5
lot.
is standard. 5 is standard. I instantly got support from the rest of the family. At least 8. At least 7.
Well, there was a time and a place when at a certain point in the evening, you used to drive over to the Taco Mayo here in Tulsa and get the 20 for 20.
Whoa. What's your how many wings? You're going to go out for wings. What's your number?
You know what? I can't eat a ton of wings. I'd say really? 20. 20 is my wheelhouse because wings are so rich. You get that rich buttery, the sauce got butter in it it's rich. And then you're dunking them in that, what is that? Reuters blue cheese, and They get pretty rich on me.
Rudy's, that's right.
Rudy's, that's it. Rudy's.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit rich for me. So I don't go crazy like 50, 75.
Right.
But no, yeah, the little shell tacos, man. Dude, come on now.
2 bites for you, Jerry, right?
We got a comment here. 6 wings in public, 15 at home. How about that?
I got a great story about that kind of goes in line. We can end the show with that. Eddie Abramowski, one of the longtime trainer of the Buffalo Bills back in the day, used to tell a story how he would go to his kids would want donuts. So he'd go to the donut shop and he'd buy 2 dozen donuts and he'd eat 1 dozen himself in the car and then 1 donut out of the other box. And then he'd come into the house and he'd have the donuts for the kids. They go, Dad, have some donuts. He'd like, I already had a donut. He'd eat one out of the other box.
Wow.
He'd eat the other ones. Abe was my guy, dude. Abe was one of the greatest humans of all time. I love Abe. I miss Abe. Abe's no longer with us. An absolute legend in the Buffalo community and the Buffalo Bills. Love that man to death. He was a good dude. Great dude.
Donuts, a full dozen, a baker's dozen, 12 and
Easy.
then 1 more.
Donuts are my wheelhouse, dude. That's my favorite food in the world is a donut. Good donuts.
And confirming 20 tacos was a routine.
Yeah, that's at the end of the night, about 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning after a long evening.
Maybe we go to a Jerry Big 2-0 Ostrowski for 20 tacos, just like throw it out there a little bit.
Those little hard shell bangers with the meat, the cheese, the lettuce.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hard shell.
Yeah.
Hard shell.
Yeah, hard shell.
Well, you guys are in on the hard shell.
Bangers.
I'm all the way out on the hard shell.
The Taco Mayo, they ran that special all the time, 20 for 20, dude. You got the whole bag of sauce in there. It was wonderful.
How much is 20 right now for that? Like $50 probably?
Yeah, it's probably 20 for 50.
Yeah.
And haven't changed anything.
Well, we're counting down to camp. We got 13 days to get there, and had some fun today. So thanks for all the comments and on the chat. We got a lot of people have their takes on tacos. They got takes on that animal conversation. Go ahead and drop your comments below, and thanks for joining us. Anyway, this is the Bill Squad Show. You can always like and subscribe to the Locked On Bills channel. Be coming every day or listen to Joe every day. Of course, we're getting closer and closer to the start of training camp when we'll once again arrive at the reality that it really just matters what happens in the playoffs. We're all just waiting to the playoffs, but be a fun ride to get there. Gentlemen, have yourselves a great day, and we'll get it on next week. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.